What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a video for you guys. This is a prediction for the upcoming bout between Danny Swift Garcia and Kendall Holt. 140-pound bout on the undercard of Chad Dawson versus Bernard Hopkins at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Puts together former champion Kendall Holt against the young prospect Danny Garcia. So, pretty much with this bout, Danny Garcia has been seen on, I believe, Telefutura and ESPN. He's been on both, I believe. I've seen a few of his fights. Very good, very good fight, very solid, but very beatable. That's, like I said, it's only my opinion, as I usually say. I think he's very beatable at this point of his career. I think he's still green, and a fighter like a Kendall Holt, I think with his style, could possibly play into the style of Kendall Holt a little bit. Being the fact that Kendall Holt is a counter puncher. Kendall Holt has a left hand that can stretch out any opponent that tends to get overzealous in fights. Kendall Holt also has a pretty good, just like Garcia has a pretty good amateur background. He's a veteran. He's been in the ring with perhaps the best 140 or former best 140-pound fighter, Timothy Bradley, and I will say, what up? I just got a text. Sorry about that. But I will say right now, Amir Khan is the #1 fighter at 140 with Bradley trailing behind him. Only because Khan's continuing the fight. So, anyway, let's get into this bout. Garcia versus Holt. I'll start off with Kendall Holt. Kendall Holt looked great in his last bout against Julio Diaz. But also take into consideration he was in the ring with an opponent that was considerably slower than him. So basically his style of fight, pretty much played into Kendall Holt's hands. He was slower. Kendall Holt was able to kind of, do whatever he wanted to do a little bit in that fight. He stood outside, he jabbed, he countered, tried to counter with the left hook, threw some decent hooks, but he was trying to find his way in with his jab, and he wasn't necessarily finding power shots off of his jab, because he doesn't really fight and find power shots off of his jab. He kind of just jabs and he fills out his opponents. He just jabs, and when the opponent gets over aggressive, he uses against them with the left hook, sometimes the right hook, sometimes he follows it up with the right hook. So in this bout, he does want to use Garcia's aggression against him, because Garcia is a fighter that admires his work after he throws decent punches. He throws a decent combination. He kind of stands there for a little bit and admires it, which is dangerous against a counter puncher with quick reflexes, or quick hands, like a Kendall Holt. Pretty much in this fight, I think he does want to stand. He does want to stand his ground. He does want to stay planted. He wants his feet planted in this fight, compared to other fights when he's up and he's dilly-dallying around the ring and hopping around and on his toes. In this fight, he pretty much wants to play the counter punch. He has a decent counter punching stance. He has power. And pretty much if he stands in the pocket, he's going to get enough leverage that I think he more likely gets from the legs to actually hurt and possibly could possibly knock out Danny Garcia. Just because I think he gets that much power, from his legs just off of that counter shot. But in this fight, he wants to be planning. He wants to play the counter puncher. He wants to try to pick off. He wants to pick off the shots of. What he wants to really do generally is pick off the straight right hand with his glove, come around it with the counter left hook. That's gonna probably do it for him, but he's gonna need to do a lot more than the hook. I think if he uses aggression against him, I think it's gonna wind down or wear down Garcia's attack. Because I think that if somebody negates and times him quite well, I think it could possibly lower the attack of Garcia and make Garcia think twice and try to make adjustments before he goes in and he throws again. So I think that pretty much in this fight, Holt's going to have to play the counter puncher. He's going to have to pretty much come over his right hand in the counter. counter with overhand right, nearly inside. And the fact that Garcia does stand like directly in front of his opponents might play well into Kendall Holt's hands. He stands directly in front of his opponents. He doesn't necessarily box. He's just, he just stands like right there in front of you, and throws his punches, and sometimes admires his work, and kind of trots from side to side. But anyway, that's Kendall Holt in a nutshell. Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia in this fight. Danny Garcia does work patiently behind his jab most of the time. Works patiently behind the jab. Picks off shots with his right hand, and throws a good left hook inside. Throws a good overhand right, very good overhand right counter. Sometimes could lead in with it. So in this fight, what he wants to do is it's a fight to where he wants to get his punches out first against Kendall Holt. Being that Kendall Holt is a counter puncher, of course. He wants to get his shots off first. He wants to. I think that this is a fight to where he does want to try to outwork Kendall Holt inside. I think this should be an inside fight for Danny Garcia. Due to the fact that, and the reason I say that this should be an inside fight is because Kendall Holt has shown deficiencies in inside fights. Fights that are just completely on the inside. Taking away the range of Holt. Getting in front of him, he just tends to freeze when you're like standing directly in front of him and not giving him enough room to fire off his punches, to fire off his counter shots, or giving him time to kind of effectively try to use his jab. Kendall Holt does throw a good straight right to the body, but it doesn't really follow it up with anything. So I think that if he does throw the straight right, I think the overhand right is going to be there for Garcia. And also, the overhand right is a punch that Holt, being that he's a counter puncher, has trouble defending himself against. We've seen it against Ricardo Torres. That was an opponent we saw it against, where the overhand right just landed just like that. In both fights, against Mabuza, the overhand right, landed a few times. And that's another fight to where Mabuza was able to get inside, and hit him, and you could pretty much say that he was not focused in that fight, but overall he just got beat from pillar to post in that fight. So I think Danny Garcia, being that he's younger, and pretty much quicker than these opponents that Holt has faced, other than maybe Bradley, he's probably up there with a Bradley as far as hand speed goes, and maybe a little quicker with his hands. But I just think that this is a fight he needs to pretty much take it to him and fight him inside. Similar to what Victor Ortiz did against Andre Berto. Just came in, fought him inside, and just outworked him in that bout. And I think he does need to outwork him, but I think he needs to outwork him inside. Keep it inside, not stand on the outside, not admire his work. And I think he could very well win this fight if he does everything based on that. So who do I think is going to win this fight? Like I said, they both have styles that kind of play into each other a little bit. I'd like to say Kendall Holt, because Kendall Holt did look sharp in his last fight, but against a significantly slower opponent. But also Danny Garcia has shown, his attack is worn down in fights. I think he does fade a little bit from time to time, but also I think he has enough to get the victory, working patiently behind the jab, and if he can get inside and let his hands go inside. Don't let the hands go outside, but let them go inside. I think he can very well win. And also, if he can catch Kendall Holt out of range, when Kendall Holt is bouncing on his toes, he doesn't get in position correctly. He never gets in position correctly when he's moving. So that's going to give Garcia, an easy target when Holt's moving. So anyway, I'm going to go with Danny Garcia by a decision. So anyway, guys, that was The Distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.